Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Sunday service for January 21st of 2024. So my talk title today is, Evolving Consciously in 2024. The following excerpt comes from the book, The Mind, What Is It? In the early 1600s, the French philosopher René Descartes formed the dualistic theory of mind and matter when he made the statement, I think, therefore I am. As a consequence, physicians and scientists got control of matter, and the church got control of mind or soul. Thinking, which was thought to be produced by the matter of the brain, became more important than the mind for many people. And we have been living with this duality for hundreds of years since then. The implications of this are so important to understand because this agreement led to the belief that thinking is as matter precedes the mind or I amness or being. And as such, to think became more important and more valuable as the years progressed than who was doing the thinking. Joseph Cardidone, in Awaken the Master Within, wrote, did you ever stop to think that what we are seeking and what we are running from are both inside of us? So today, what I've done is summarized a lot of what he wrote because I wanted to share it with you. So if we sometimes feel like we're in a jail, it's a jail of our own making because the jailer who keeps us enslaved is in fact a voice in our own head. And the voice that provides us with a concept of who we are as self that comes up very short. But it's that part that Descartes did not answer. Who is doing the thinking? And this question of our identity is actually at the heart of our spiritual journey. Shakespeare wrote in the play Hamlet, to thine own self be true, so that we cannot then be false to anyone else. However, finding our true self can be quite a task. Which self are we to be true to, since there seems to be a myriad of selves inside of our heads? This morning, I was having coffee with some girlfriends, and we talked about, the different parts of us and how we can have one feeling going on at the very same time that we have another feeling going on, one thought going on at the same time we have another thought. So you can be angry or upset or irritated with somebody, but at the same time, having compassion for whatever it is, that they're going through. So if we want to experience freedom and peace, we need to solve this question for ourselves. There is a part of us that can help us, an expert, if you want to say, who already knows how to find ourselves. But the expert just got distracted and sidetracked by the many voices that are inside of us. The good news is that we are able to free ourselves from this self-imposed jail. We talk a lot about awakening our consciousness of, and that just boils down to separating out who we are from who we are not. It may come as a surprise to us that we are not our thoughts, that we are not our feelings, and we are not our reactions. You would think that it ought to be easy to give us a definitive answer to the question, who am I? But the endless chatter in our head makes it pretty confusing for us to answer that question clearly. If right now you're saying to yourself, I don't know what you're talking about, I don't have any voice in my head, actually, that's the one we're talking about. The interesting thing about the voice is that it takes both sides of the argument and conversation. Yes, I am. No, I'm not. When the voice argues with itself like that, who is it really arguing with? If you're hearing it talk, it obviously isn't you because you are the one listening. To favor one voice over the other is to lose our objectivity. Our initial practice is to just notice that there is a voice or voices, and that you are able to listen in on the voices. What you can learn from doing this is that much of the running commentary in our head is meaningless. Coming to realize that the voice in our head is not who we are is one of the first steps to spiritual freedom. Which of the voices and which of the many aspects of our personality is really who we are? The answer is none of them. And there is no need for us to continually try to figure it all out. You see, life is not the problem. It's the trying to figure it all out that's the problem. It's the running commentary that is the bigger issue. What is the need for all this narration? The answer is that narration, or the story we tell ourselves, makes us feel more comfortable. It's a similar experience to that of being a backseat driver. And what is being a backseat driver all about? In a word, control. Through the story and the commentary, your mind is experiencing its own made up mental model of reality rather than reality itself. This makes us feel more empowered, more in charge, and in control. It's like we recreated the world in our mind and lived there rather than in reality. And what would happen if we decided not to do this anymore and instead decided to just observe the world? You see, the reason why our minds talk all the time is that we gave it that job to do in order to make us feel more comfortable. In attempting to hold it all together, we are really trying to hold ourselves together because we feel the need to protect ourselves. Real spiritual growth is about transcending that part of us that feels we need protecting. We will never have peace because the voice in our head is an unhappy part of us who always sees some problem. The best advice is when we perceive a problem to not ask, what should I do about it? But rather to ask, what part of me is disturbed by this? So I have something to share with you. The other day in the morning, I was trying to meditate. I do this breathing in I and breathing out am. And I really try to bring the I am into my whole being. Well, I was frustrated. I was irritated. I just couldn't settle down. And it was like, okay, what is going on? What is that part of me that's not settling down? And when I asked it, it said, I'm bored. And my immediate reaction was, how can you be bored when we're sitting here trying to connect to the other side and expand our light and feel this great energy on the other side? So I finally just gave up and got up and walked, did some other things, got cleaned the house, whatever. And later that night, I sat down and I said, how can you be bored? And what it told me was, you do the same meditation over and over and over again. I'm bored. So if I would have listened to it earlier, I probably could have shifted my meditation. But what it led me to was to go onto YouTube, and I brought up meditations. And so there were all these different meditations I could do. But one of the things that came up was chanting. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do chanting in, and brought up all these different chants. And one of the Buddhist chants that I was listening to, it just moved through my whole body. There was something about it. And that part of me that had been bored before was like, this is so much better. So basically, just don't buy into the belief that there's a problem. Instead, try to understand why we perceive that a situation is a problem so that we can achieve peace in the face of seeming problems. If I would have listened to that part of me, I would have shifted gears and done a different meditation. It wasn't a problem. It was just that part of me wanted to expand out of the meditations that I was doing. We are inviting our so-called problems to be teachable moments for us rather than something to fix. So once you notice the part of you who is disturbed, ask yourself, who is it that sees or notices that part of you that is disturbed or are just wallowing in being disturbed? So this technique is the solution to every problem. A spiritually minded person realizes that the problem is in the eye of the beholder, not out there in the world. And to find true freedom we must learn to become the witness or the observer of our own negative narrative. The solution to our problems is not to rearrange the things on the outside, but to change our perspective from the inside. And most of us do things, but actually most of us do things by email these days. And have you ever received an email from someone suggesting something and had a reaction to the suggestion? What was written in the email was not the problem. What it caused to get stirred up inside of us is the real problem. And it's what got stirred up that needs to be addressed. However, we have that voice inside that keeps us thinking about the suggestion in the email rather than the feelings that just got stirred up. Becoming the observer or witness is taking the seat of consciousness. From that vantage point, it might be helpful to see our mind as if it was a roommate. If like there's two places we can hang out in the mind, one in the place of the observer and the other in the place of the personality that continually narrates a negative story. And we are not alone in the universe, and neither are we alone in our minds. Once we wake up to the realization that it is the negative inner voice that is ruining our experience of life, that is taking away joy and peace, we have the key to inner peace and freedom. Imagine that the voice is a person sitting next to us on the couch. And as we listen to the constant negative commentary, we find ourselves wanting to get as far away as the person as possible. So try externalizing this voice as an experiment and see what your reaction is. How would you respond if a friend of yours talked the way that the inner voice in your head does? Would you ever ask them for relationship advice or financial advice? If the voice were a person you had hired to give you advice, would you not have fired them by now? And yet we never fire the voice in our head, no matter how many times it's been wrong. We continually go back and forth and listen to whatever else it now has to say. Thus, we come to understand that there has only ever been one problem in our lives, and we listen to it all the time. So the question is, are we really ready to ditch the negative voice in our head? As it stands, our life is not our own. It's being run by our inner roommate. Ramana Maharshi, a great yogi, once said that in order to attain inner freedom, we must consciously ask the question, who am I? And it's interesting how challenging it is to give a good answer to that question, because we tend to list attributes or experiences or labels, but seldom does the answer get to the heart of who we are. And again, if you haven't tried to answer that question, I encourage you to spend some time doing so. When we were 10 years old, we looked in the mirror and saw a 10-year-old body. Isn't it the same you that now looks and sees an adult body? What we look at has changed, but the looker has not. There's a continuity of beingness that has always been in there looking. We are not the objects that we see or encounter. We are not the experiences, the reactions or feelings that we have. We are the one who has them or who observes them. We know that we're not our thoughts because it is possible to not think and have a quiet mind. We exist even when we are not thinking. You very much, Mr. Descartes. We are aware of our thoughts, but who is it that is aware of thinking and of thoughts? It's me, the observer. It's like I am a presence sitting at the back of the mind, looking out, observing everything. And from that seat, we are just aware of being itself and of being conscious. So I've shared the story with you before. There was one time when I was working at the center up here in Grass Valley that I was sitting there at the computer typing, and I had this thing beside me that I had to, put the information, into what I was typing on. And I was just looking and typing and looking and typing. And all of a sudden, I'm standing behind that body. Literally, I am behind the body by about 3 feet. And I'm looking at the body who is looking at the paper and typing, and looking at the paper and typing. And my thought was, whoa, wait a minute. I'm back here, back behind her. But if I'm back here, who's doing the typing? So on the spiritual path, we are invited to live from this place back of things, because this is where the mystery lives. And I'm not saying do what I did, where I was literally out of body observing. But in your mind, you can actually take a step back in your mind and just observe the thoughts that are going on in there. And this place that we're at when we do that is our true home. And we can learn to experience our lives from that place rather than from the vantage points of our negative inner roommate. And our lives become a much happier place to hang out. This is where the seat of the Buddhist self, the Hindu Atman, and where we can experience the Christ of our being. It is the place where we are aware that we are aware. It's the place where we can also know that we are not alone. Rather, that in this place, we are one with everyone, with life itself, and we are all one mind. In the book, The Way of Mastery, we are asked to sit as the Christ each and every day. And one of the Way of Mastery groups I belong to decided to sit for 15 minutes each and every day, just to see what it creates for us. So greater peace of mind, greater awareness of life around us, greater connection with source. All of these things have begun to happen in just 1 week. But how did that happen? Where were our thoughts during that period of time? Were our thoughts still running the way they usually are? No. What we are called to think is, I am the Christ, or I am that I am. And concentrated thinking on one thing and one thing only, being fully present in the present moment. All of that mind chatter dissolved greatly. A deeper connection with the Christ of our own being took its place. What is better and greater than that? I invite everyone who has moved to do so just to sit as the Christ for 15 minutes each and every day, just to see for yourself how this will change not only your own life, but the lives of those around you. And another thing that you can do is something that Matt Kahn suggested: be the divinity. Just look at everything around you and recognize that the divinity is seen as doing that, experiencing whatever. It really keeps your mind focused on divinity, the Christ, and you begin to notice that the everyday errant thoughts are not taking place as much as they did, or if they do at all. We all want to evolve from this earth plane of existence. These are some easy ways to do it. So choose one, choose them both, listen to that inner part of you, and allow yourself to evolve peacefully, easily, gently into being the fullness of the Christ that you are. So much love, everyone. God bless. Have a beautiful week. Enjoy and take care. Namaste.